back in the 1930s and 40s, everyone had access to radio. It's one of the biggest industries of its time, but today, in 2018, there are millions of people who have access to an ever-growing library of music from all corners of the world. Thanks to services like Spotify and SoundCloud, the use of radio has slowly been dwindling and has begun to become nearly incompetent. But how did we go from radio silence to radio dying? It all started with a man by the name of Heinrich Hertz, who was born in 1857 by the age of 29 in 1886, had not only discovered a form of electromagnetic waves known as radio waves, but was the first person to send and receive information using his discovery. Years later, on December 12, 1901, at 12:30 p.m., history was made. It was at this moment that the first Morse code signal was sent via radio signaling. This back-and-forth signaling proved to be a groundbreaking success, changing the lives of many. This led to the creation of television programming, radar for military and commercial ship navigation, AM and FM commercial broadcasting, cell phones, and many more devices and products that we use in our daily lives.
The 80s are coming to an end, and a new age is beginning, the Internet age. The Internet allowed for improvement in industries with stagnating innovation like snail mail or radio. This is when Internet radio was born. Internet radio is a digital audio service transmitted via the Internet, also called webcasting because it is not transmitted by traditional radio waves. In comparison to regular radio, Internet radio is not limited to audio. Internet radio can be broadcast alongside text, links, and photos. However, Internet radio is now experiencing a revolution. So, instead of being able to just access your favorite Internet radio stations on your computer, you will now be able to access broadcasts anytime, anywhere. But this is not without a catch. Artists are not receiving royalties when their songs are played online. This problem became more and more prevalent. Eventually, the Recording Industry Association of America, or the RIAA, got together and came up with a solution: a huge increase in performance royalties. Now the groundwork has been set for a demise of independent broadcasting on the Internet, and all webcasters can do is sit and wait.
On this very special upcoming New Year's Eve, thousands of Americans will be spending the night at the last place they might have expected.
The danger lies in the so-called millennium bug.
Terry, as you and Pat have already said, more and more experts are warning that the year 2000 could bring a date with disaster.
It's January 1st, 2000, and much to the surprise of your crazy uncle, the world decided not to end, though it certainly felt like it for independent broadcasters on the web. Only months earlier, Yahoo bought Broadcast.com, an internet radio streaming service, with plans to build a media empire. This was the beginning of the end for those outside of big tech's pocket. As is the case with most technological advancements, the laws surrounding internet radio were virtually non-existent in the beginning. Back then, the FCC was focused on creating laws rather than repealing them, but the amount of corporate influence on their decisions certainly hasn't changed. And if anyone was able to throw their weight around in the year 2000, it was Yahoo. Mark Cuban, the former owner of Broadcast.com, describes how they wanted to drive small broadcasters out of business by pressuring Congress to pass legislation forcibly instating prohibitively high royalty payments only Yahoo could pay for. This would force the small broadcasters to join Broadcast.com. In 2002, Congress eventually passed legislation based on Yahoo's anti-competitive recommendations. But now everyone, tech giant or garage entrepreneur, had to pay the same absurdly high rate of a 7,000th of a cent per song per listener. Now, that may not sound like much. It may not sound like anything at all. But to put it in perspective, a station with 2,000 listeners playing 15 songs an hour, would have to pay over $180,000 per year. Money nobody but Yahoo had. Web radio wasn't ready to go down without a fight, though.
As it turned out, fighting was an exercise in futility, and web radio is meeting its end not at the hands of the federal court, but in the court of public opinion. Live radio, whether online or via traditional radio waves, is on its last legs. Think about it. How many people that you know have a radio in their house? If so, when's the last time they even used it? Services like Spotify offer more choice and customization, making them the first choice for consumers. Old-fashioned radio simply cannot compete. It's only a matter of time until live radio is replaced by websites like Spotify. Though this necessarily isn't a bad thing, we should embrace change. There will always be a sense of nostalgia for those who remember changing radio stations and hoping your favorite song would come on, or just jamming out to whatever Alice decided to play in the car. Radio overall has been a positive influence on society. It was an essential way of getting information out in a time where internet and broadcast television didn't exist. In conclusion, live radio and its internet counterpart have had their time. Radio has been bringing progress to society ever since we were born, and in fact, even before our parents were born. Personally, I'm glad to be able to experience radio firsthand rather than reading it out in the history books.
This is an email interview between myself and Mia from KWMR. She's a co-host of a show called Epicenter, and she's the fundraising director there. She'll be reading her side of the conversation, and I'll be reading mine. The first question I asked was, how did you get into the radio business? And this was her response.
I started at KWMR in 2011 as an intern. I did the board op training and started helping out, doing some PSAs and stuff like that. And then I became an employee in 2012. And before that, I was briefly involved in Geronimo Radio as a kid at Lagunitas School District. And I did some small amount of news work at KSPC in Claremont, California when I was at school there.
The second question I asked was, when did KWMR start broadcasting on the web? This was her response.
KWMR started broadcasting on the web around 2008.
Now, the third question I asked was, how has broadcasting online affected the station?
Broadcasting online, it allows our listeners to stream, wherever they are. If they're like in their garden, they can take their radio out there. They can stream from anywhere. And it also allows us to forward shows to our guests. So I always do that. Keeps us connected to the people who come on the air by allowing us to give the shows to them. And also, probably most importantly, people can listen to the archives online, which is a huge boost to people who can't necessarily listen at the time of broadcast. And also, it allows KWMR to access online listener statistics, which helps us inform programming decisions, helps us kind of get a handle on who's listening where and what and how much. And also it helps us approximate on the dial statistics. So basically, we don't have FM dial statistics at all. So the online statistics sort of are a stand-in to give us a sense of the pattern of our listenership.
Question number 4. What do you think about the copyright laws pertaining to online broadcasting?
I'm not super informed about things like that. I do think artists should get paid royalties for their work every single time. At the same time, of course, I do wish that we could leave our archives up longer than 2 weeks, and sometimes some of the music copyright laws, create a barrier to us using some of the content that we create, or not a barrier, but more a hassle, like we have to edit it out. But at the same time, I think artists should be compensated, so I think that hassle for us is worth it in the name of having artists be fairly reimbursed for their work.
And last but not least, I asked, what are some positive aspects of broadcasting online in areas like ours, where trees and mountains can interfere with signals?
I'd say we have listeners worldwide, so it allows us to continue entertaining our locals who have moved. So I know we have a lot of people scattered across the country who used to live here, and now they can still listen to us online. And also allows us to reach new audiences who don't live here. And another financial aspect is it allows us to market to businesses and organizations as underwriters and supporters who don't necessarily live or are based in West Marin. So it expands our reach in all ways.
$1 billion stacked up right without an accident is about 800 times the height of the Washington Monument.